Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Training Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and tonight we'll be looking at the topic Beyond Silos, how system thinking elevates HR's role in organizational transformation. Today we have yet again the privilege, honor, and pleasure of having facilitated this session tonight, Ujunwa Somtochukwu. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not tired of reading her profile. Ujunwa is a strategic HR business partner, an entrepreneur, and a transformational leader with 15 years of progressive experience across diverse industries, including manufacturing, information technology, digital payments, oil and gas, real estate, transportation, and mining. Known for her grace, grit, and groundedness, Uju has spent her career aligning people, culture, systems to just not help organizations grow in profit, but in purpose. Her area of expertise also includes organizational design and restructuring, digital transformation, performance optimization, and change management. All of this is rooted in deep commitment to integrity and impact. Currently, she serves as the country HR business partner and head of administration at Devret. Again, I don't still know how to pronounce that organization. Maybe when they give me a contract, I'll know how to pronounce them. She has led key regional transformations that have reduced costs, all right, elevated engagement, and built leadership capacities across borders. Her work has helped unlock millions in savings, boost workforce performance, and also prepare organizations for the future of work. She holds degrees from the University of Nsukka, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where she got a first degree in economics, and she also has a master's MSc Human Resource Management from the University of Derby, UK. She also has executive certifications from schools such as Harvard Business School, Takedia Institute, University of Maryland, and more. Professionally, she is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, Human Resource Certification Institute, Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, IIBA, and the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, UK. Tonight, we are very privileged to have with us, to speak to us tonight, again, on the topic Beyond Silos, how systems thinking elevates HR's role in organizational transformation. Let's welcome Ujunwa Somtochukwu. You have the floor, my sister.
Good evening, everyone. And this time around, let me help you pronounce the name of my organization, Gezek plus Divren. Until you get your contract, just manage and say G and D or G plus D. That will go, that will be fine. All right, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to discuss on this topic, Beyond Silos, how system thinking elevates HR role in organizational transformation. Just in case you have any question, I can't see my screen, you can drop it on the chat box, and then later on we go through it because I love managing my time. Over the next hour, we'll explore how adapting system perspective can fundamentally change how we approach organizational challenges and position us as HR that are strategic drivers of enterprise-wide transformation. It's not about theory as usual, it's practical framework that would help us navigate the complex interconnectedness challenges facing organizations today. All right, let me start by painting a picture that I have observed, and I'm sure most of you must have observed it as well. In many organizations today, everyone is doing their job, yet somehow the system is not working. Either marketing is blaming on operations, and operations blames HR for not hiring right, and then you see HR blaming management for unclear direction. And then we wonder why performance remains flat despite significant investment in technology, training, and restructuring. According to Peter Singer, he believes and states that you cannot change one part of a system without influencing the whole. So today we are going to explore how system thinking can help us as HR move beyond silos and drive enterprise-wide transformation and future-proof organizations for complex challenges ahead. Let's start by understanding what is system thinking. At the core of system thinking, it is the ability to view an organization as an interconnected network of people, process, and purpose, not as an isolated department or functions. It emphasizes on relationship, feedback, and patterns rather than isolated events or symptoms. The fundamental idea here is that for every problem that we encounter in an organization, it's a part of understanding the whole that creates the solution for it. This is not where traditional management approach comes handy. Traditional management approach actually focuses on symptoms rather than parts, rather than the root cause of the problem. It prioritizes short-term quick as against long-term health systems. But system thinking gives us a different lens, one that helps us to see the invisible connections that drives those organizational behaviors we see in our different companies. Before I progress, let me explain the difference between system thinking and traditional thinking. Let's imagine an organization where sales incentive that intends to increase sales incentive without upgrading production capacity. What do you think would happen? Of course, burnout amongst production staff, customer dissatisfaction due to delay deliveries, or decline in quality. A traditional thinker might address each symptom separately, such as hiring more employees, or offer apologies to customer, or implement quality control to increase the quality of the product or their services. However, a system thinking will proactively anticipate those ripple effects from the beginning and design something that is balanced, that would fit into the entire value chain of the organization. And that is the power of seeing the whole system, not just a part of it. Now, notice how traditional thinking focuses on symptoms, it focuses on solve parts in isolation, it prioritizes efficiency and seeks quick short-term quick fix. However, system thinking focuses on root cause. It aligns path with the whole and prioritizes sustainability while investing in long-term health. Before we move further once again, let's understand silos and break it down. One of the most persistent manifestation of traditional thinking in organization is evidence of silos, where every department optimizes itself. You see HR focusing on engagement, you see finance focusing on cost control, and you see operation focusing on efficiency. Whereas the system is losing synergy. The tragedy of this is that it's not just about the inefficiency, it's about the disconnection. Breaking these silos down demands not just meetings. It requires shared organization values, system level alignments. How do we overcome silos? I have listed here 4 strategies we can use to overcome silos. The first is to establish a shared value, a shared purpose that aligns all departments across enterprise-wide, not just isolated KPIs. And the second is to create cross-functional teams that combines both HR, finance, operation, and IT. The third is to enable transparent knowledge that would flow through every structure for open data sharing and collaboration. And then the last but not the least is model leadership behavior that rewards cooperation, collaboration, and system thinking, not just wars between different departments. And our goal as HR in this setting is to ensure that we champion one vision, one organization through integrated performance management, unified communication, and cross-departmental learning. Let's now look at the role of HR in system thinking organization. It's a paradigm shift for HR to go from traditional or just a policy custodian to 4 key roles, which demands that we should evolve into an architect of organizational coherence. The first role of HR is architect of alignment. It's our duty to design systems that connect strategy, culture, and talent into a coherent goal, a whole. And the second is connector. By connector, we are bridging the silos that exist between each department and enabling cross-functional collaboration. The third one would be sense maker. How do we play our part? This is where we interpret patterns, data, and translate them into action points. And then the fourth one is change catalyst. We drive transformation, not just within HR, but across organizational boundaries. This fundamental shift requires HR to be a systematic system design. This means we go beyond our transactional activities to becoming a connective tissues that holds organization together. It's not just doing HR that matters, but it's about redefining the role in such a way that it aligns the organization towards achieving its success. Now, for us to be able to achieve these strategic roles, we would look at the 4 key principles of system thinking. The first principle is interconnectedness. This means that we need to recognize that every function, every issue, every problem is connected to the other, right? For instance, hiring for speed rather than fit leads to low turnover. You may ask why. Here is it. They are not separate, they are the same, but it's a symptoms of a disconnected recruitment system. When we understand interconnectedness, we stop treating symptoms and start addressing root cause. Because by hiring fast, not fit, it affects, we do not take the cognition of the fact that the person we have hired just to meet our time to hire, right, might not align with our organization goals, and it affects both the performance, affect the behavior. It has impact both on the behavior and the performance of the organization. The next one is what I called feedback loop. Systems are governed by reinforcing and balancing feedback loop. By reinforcing feedback loop, we are amplifying change. These changes that create vicious circle, always giving room for improvement, stable improvement, because we keep on analyzing, getting feedback, and keep making progress, change, progressive change. Therefore, it's highly recommendable that we use pulse check in connection with performance data, exit interview, stay interview, right? To identify systematic issues. So what am I saying? For instance, if there is an engagement drop, when we bring those 4 things that I have mentioned, there is a possibility that we'll trace back the cause of that drop in performance or drop in engagement into unclear communication, right? So we are no longer collecting data for collecting data's sake. We are aligning it and reading the data from pulse check to performance to stay interview to exit interview to find out the root cause of the engagement that is dropping in the organization. And I would say it's about understanding how information flows through the system and creates reinforcing or balancing effects. Feedback loop helps us to see patterns over time, not just isolated events. Then the third one is leverage points. There is this lady, right? Doniale, yes, Meduse. He's of the opinion that the small changes that we take advantage of has impact on big things. Therefore, any minor intervention, let's say redesigning onboarding, has an effect on organizational purpose. How? Because it would create ripple effects that transform retention and performance. And our role as HRs here is to find those high leverage points where investment yields major changes. Where are those places that when we adjust a bit, we'll see a bigger impact? We need to understand our systems and deep enough to identify those true leverage points and intervene strategically. Now think about your own systems. For those 3 things I mentioned, the 4th one would be emergence. When I mean emergence, it's just saying that for all those behaviors, for all those things, for all those lateness, burnout that we are seeing in the system, it's coming from somewhere. And like I said here, you cannot mandate a culture. It emerges from the system we designed. And for us to mandate culture, we need to redesign those systems based on the findings, root cause findings. Now, I've mentioned 4 principles. The first one is interconnectedness. The second one is leverage point. The third one is feedback loop. And then the last one is emergence. Let me translate it into 2 or 3 HR functions. Let's take talent management as an instance. In a traditional talent management setting, it treats recruitment, development, performance, and retention as separate functions, right? But system thinking sees it as a team of an integrated ecosystem. We know that when we hire someone, we are not just filling a position. We are introducing a new node into the organization network. That person, like I said earlier, will influence team dynamics. It will influence knowledge flow. It will bring about culture. It will influence the cultural norms and performance system. Therefore, their onboarding experience would shape the entire engagement system, which affects performance, influences retention, which impacts employer branding, at the end, the future of recruitment. So with system thinking, we are not just asking how do we fill the role. we are asking, how does this hiring decision strengthen our entire talent ecosystem? The second example I want to give, still on the key principles of system thinking using HR functions, is performance management. In traditional performance management, it focuses on individual metrics and annual review. But here is the problem. Individual performance is deeply embedded in system performance, and as a result of employees' performance, that is influenced, but the employees' performance is influenced by the tools they have, the process they follow, the team they work with, the leadership they receive, and the culture they operate in. Now, what will system thinking ask? Are we measuring for measuring sake, or are we measuring what actually matters to the system? Traditional thinking will just go ahead and measure what is easier for the employee or for individual KPIs. Let me play an example of hiring a customer service role, a customer service representative. The traditional metrics will focus on track call volumes, right? Resolution time, but system thinking will have to go into the role, how the role contributes to the customer lifetime value. How do their interaction influence brand perception? How do their feedback impact production improvement? And how does their experience shape the entire service culture? Therefore, a typical system thinking approach to performance management would be one, to measure the contribution to systems goal, not just individual outputs, right? To recognize interdependence and collaborative achievement, to provide real-time feedback, not just annual snapshots. And then finally, focus on learning, adoption, not just evaluation and judgment. In the end, it's asking, system thinking is asking, how can we perform together? How can we improve the system? We go to the next point. In all these things, all these four key principles I mentioned, I want us to focus on how can we find leverage points so that it will be easier for us to take up a particular function and go into our organization and design our systems in such a way that is connected to every organization. For me, I have listed 4 practical points on how we can identify our leverage points. The first one will be to map the system. And yes, I will still talk about the tools we can use to map the system. The second point would be to identify those bottlenecks that limit system performance. And then the third one would assess the feedback loops to understand which loops reinforces the desired behavior and which one causes resistance. The fourth one would be to prioritize human levers. And by this, I mean looking for all those things we can do that affects human in such a way that the system automatically adjusts itself. Because we cannot provide the system without trying to address the human that operates in the system. Let's take an example of adjusting reward system and career paths that will shift organizational behavior more effectively than adding training programs. The key here, right, is to intervene where human motivation and system intersect. That is what leverage is. Now let's look at the tools that we can use as HR professionals to design a system thinking framework. The first one, topping the chart, is the iceberg model. I know we have different opinions of this iceberg, things that we see happening on the top and the things that we can't see happening. But here, it helps us to diagnose a problem not actually looking at the surface, but looking at the different stages under. And most organizations actually react to the surface, that's the symptoms, visible symptoms. But with system thinking, with Iceberg model, we go deeper. The first level being event, that's the symptoms, let's say high turnover, right? And then the second one would be patterns. What trends have been occurring over time? Okay, since we use turnover as an example, we may say the recurring trends would be increase in turnover, or turnover happening, a percentage of turnover happening every quarter. Then the third one would be structure. This looks at the process and incentive that influences those patterns, like performance management that penalizes mistakes rather than encouraging growth. And then the fourth one would be mental mode, those beliefs and assumptions that shapes our workplace. Example, we can say people leave because of money, right? Whereas the real issue is lack of purpose and development. These ones are basic example. Therefore, for us to truly transform, we need to address these 4 levels and not just the visible points. So in the event of employee burning out, the pattern is high turnover, right? And the structure might be unrealistic workload and expectations, lack of boundaries. And then the mental mode will be the belief that productivity is equal long hour. You know, those employees that even after work, they will still stay just to prove that they are workaholics, right? Now, for us to resolve it, we should address the mental mode. Let's start by disapproving the fact that staying late at work doesn't equate to high performance, right? And then from there, we start addressing it. That would change because it's inhuman. It changes the mindset. And then we now start putting processes, looking at the structure. And then by addressing the structure, the pattern reduce and the event or the symptoms definitely disappears. This iceberg, another is likened to another tool that is called the 5 disciplines of a learning organization, according to Peter Singer, which is still system thinking, shared value, mental modes, team learning, and people masteries. And together, all these things create a learning organization that is capable of transforming, sustaining transformation. Now, we've talked about tools for system thinking, designing the framework. Now let's talk about how we can map the system, right? There is a tool called the causal loop diagram. It helps us to visualize how HR is interacting with finance, how finance interacts with operations, and how operations interact with HR, IT. And the benefits is that first, it reveals hidden connections between those departments and process. Then the process we might miss out. The second is that it helps us to identify unintended consequences before they occur. And the third one is it enables strategic intervention at critical leverage points. Now, let me give you an example. There is this particular, 2 examples. There is this particular scenario where, of course, there was a need for us to increase salary, right? I myself as HR, I would have to review salaries, compare. We normally use MESA framework and MESA reports, and then we propose in view of inflation rate. I have done my part. I would assume that I've done my part, right? But because we have external customers that we attend to, and the cost of employees, the pricing system, I need to submit the cost of employees for each employee we send to site. Now, I will need to work with operations. I'll need to work with HR, finance. Why do I need to work with them? I am proposing a salary increase that would impact on our profitability and the pricing we are giving to customers, our customer. I hope you can still hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear you. The
All right.
system is working.
Oh, okay. So as I am preparing my salary, but I need to contribute to pricing system to make sure that we are not giving prices that are outrageous for our customers to meet. How then do I manage this? And that is where system thinking comes in. I am sitting with operations to tell him this is what we are proposing next week. How will the service agreement work? Is this visible? And then I'm talking to finance based on, aside the salary that have increased, other departments have submitted their budget for the year. What is our profitability like if we use this skill? Of course, it will be approved. Before it's approved, we've aligned to make sure that whatever it is that we are increasing as a result of whatever it is that we are giving to employees as a result of salary increase does not move us out of competition with our competitors in the market. That is a typical example from real life experience. Another example I would give is a performance mapping system. You've designed your performance mapping system, and maybe you have designed that you would need a performance platform or software, and you've because you don't align, there are finance people that sit and decide. Finance have sat and decided on what the budget for the year is. Now you have found out a problem in the system that needs to be addressed with this performance system to eradicate biases that occurred the last year. Whereas finance is not on no. The budget cycle is not in alignment with your talent and development or whatever it is that you're trying to do, which impacts operations' ability to execute the strategy. So without mapping and seeing how it's connected to every department as HR professionals, it becomes a problem. And that is how it shows that we are actually working as administrators and not strategic HR business partners. But with this system mapping, it can help us design interventions that address the whole system, not just isolated parts. Other practical tools is data ecosystem thinking. What do I mean? Remember earlier I said performance management report, pulse check, exit interview, stay interview. We don't interpret them separately. We bring them together to find the root cause of the problem. So it's all about integrating all those our reports, the engagement, the performance, and to impact on the business metric for system level and insights. The third one is learning agility. Creating learnings that support and reflect mentorship, reflection, and team retrospect. So for everything we are designing, we are making sure that there is a ripple effect. It's reflecting on the team. It's not that you have, I had one incident in the past where we have to send someone to a high cost training, right? For a project that will take several years to start. And then when the person comes back from the training, he or she is eager to start practicing or start putting into work whatever he or she has learned. And then there is no system to practice it or to just put to use what the person has learned. You see them going out. Then the last one is facilitate systems conversation. What do I mean? Those conversations that we sit and ask ourselves, this is our vision, this is our goal. Finance, how does this affect you? HR, how does this affect you? Operations, how does this affect you? And then be asking, what do you need from me to make it work? We are sitting on the table to design those, identify those places where we interact. You will be telling HR, I will need the reports for the cost of employees to get this information, or HR, I will need this, or operations, what is the cost of back end, all those information. All right, and this is all about the practical tool. Now, for all these things we've stated, it won't be possible if our leadership is not top notch, is not encouraging it. And so we are going to discuss the behavior, the three core behavior that enables system thinking. The first one, I can't stop talking about psychological safety. No matter what I say, I will find a way to include it because it's a ground. It is the soil that encourages innovation. It creates environments where people can speak up, their challenges or assumptions, clear their assumptions, and learn from failure without fear of being punished. And then learning agility, of course, because it fosters curiosity, experiment, and rapid adoption to changing conditions. Organizations that learn faster, that learns is faster than their competitors. And then distributed leadership. This is where I find problem most times, where we empower decisions at levels, at lower level, rather than allowing all decisions to be taken from the top. All right? These are the three core behaviors that would enhance system thinking, and it should be coming from leadership. All right. HR's role here is to enable this, is to embed these cultural enablers into leadership pipelines, performance framework, recognition system. Knowing that culture eats strategy as breakfast, the system thinking provides us with the blueprint to build the right culture. Now let's look at the end of this thing, at the end of all this system thinking, how do we measure success? What is it that defines success for us? All right, how do we measure success as HR professionals in a system thinking organization? While traditional metrics looks at time to hire, training hour, turnover rate, engagement score, of course, they are all lagging indicators, and they tell us what has happened, not actually what will happen or what is happening. System thinking metrics shifts our focus from lagging to leading indicators. System health, collaboration index across departments. You would ask me, how is this possible? An instance of how collaboration index cross-function, all of them are interacted, cross-functional project success rates, employee engagement to performance correlation, innovation and agility index. Let me give you a typical scenario. There is need to review, let's say, travel tools, right? You know, in that travel tool, finance has a role to play. Operations that are on the field has a role to play. How then do you collaborate? For you to review that policy, you don't just sit as HR professional and do the review. You have to seek collaboration, not just survey. Seek the inputs, have one member, that's cross-functional projects. Have one member of finance in the project team, have one member of operations in the project team. Whoever it's affecting, let them be in the project team to ensure that their interest is addressed, right? And then you review the policy. What does this do? There is no back and front because everybody's carried along. Now, how do you measure the cross-functional success rate? You see those, we do employee engagement survey, pulse check. One of the areas we can measure this cross-functional successes, either quarterly or 2 times in a year or 3 times in a year, we have this net employer index, if I'm not mistaken. But what does it mean? Sorry, please, I'm not used to all this language. What I'm saying is, in my organization, you see finance reviewing, answering review or questions pertaining finance. Were they able to meet their goals? Did they address problems? Are there problems? Did finance treat every of your requests? What was the timeline given to finance? Are you okay with the services of finance? So finance is addressing operations. Field engineers are answering questionnaires from finance, for admin, for IT, for HR, just like that. And you see admin responding to HR, responding to finance. At the end, we bring it out to see where each organization performs best, reward them, encourage them, and the ones that aren't performing best, find out how we can employ them, encourage them. You see all this language, all these points I've listed here. This explanation covers it. Now, innovation, you have reward system that encourages people that come up with ideas. If it gets to the end, fine, they take the highest part. If it doesn't get to the end, due to circumstances beyond their control, you still reward them to encourage them, right? And then process inefficiency reduction. During those questionnaires you're sharing for each department and other departments answering them, you're asking them what is the maximum timeline for them to address your question, 24 hours, 72 hours, 1 week, 3 weeks. When we get all these reports, we sit and discuss it, not for punishment, but to encourage one another. We sit up. So what am I saying? We are supposed to focus on metrics that talks about what is happening now and what's not, and what would happen in the predictive and analysis, current and future, and not what has already. Yes, it's okay, but we shouldn't depend on those metrics that gives us information on things that actually doesn't tie to the business goal. All right. What are the common challenges we have with the system thinking framework from actualizing it? We have 4 barriers and we have 4 solutions. Now, what do I mean by functional tough words? You see finance. I used to tell my finance colleagues, finance is no longer about cost reduction. It's about business partnership. Even if it costs us more now, what is the possibility? You're analyzing the business that is on the table. You're checking what is the impact, what is it going to yield for us in the future. So we are no longer saying, every report that comes to our table, finance will no longer say, it's expensive. The only thing HR knows is how to put money, spend money. Everybody, every department protecting its own territory and resisting collaboration. But HR and finance can sit together and say, this is the challenges we are having. If we address this would happen, this would happen, this would happen, more money will come in. We have leadership resistance. And this is coming from the fact that leaders find it difficult to release their control for people under them to take decisions. And the third one is we are always under the pressure to provide results, and that's short-term orientation, that we forget the long term. Now we are addressing this because we didn't see the whole picture. We are causing another problem. Had it been I increased the salary without working with finance operations, right? And then when we submit our SLA to our customers, right? It will be high. That will move us out of the market competition. But when we align, we look at areas we can adjust, what is possible, and what's based on previous reports, previous analysis from our customers, how we can actually, what we expect them to say yes or no to, and then plan around it, and explain and communicate to employees as well. The last one is systemic literacy, limited understanding of how things work in organization, and that is what we call business acumen in HR. You need to understand how things work, how your function affects operations, and how this particular role affects, knowing that it's part of the whole system. That whatever it is really happens or cause any problem in this angle will affect the other angle. And then we look at the solution. Let's start with small. We start with pilot projects, small cross-functional project. Like when it comes to organizing an event, we don't leave it for event management team or marketing. We have someone in HR, someone in admin, and work as a project. Those small projects that allows us to think beyond our function. We can start with it. The second would be to facilitate system mapping workshop. Like I said, when all those reports comes in, we sit as leaders and say, by you not doing this, it affects this. By operations not doing this, it affects this. Therefore, we come together to see what our inefficiencies affect the other people and provide solutions to this. There is more to it, but that is facilitating systems mapping framework and workshop. And the third one is to showcase wins. So we celebrate and communicate early success that builds momentum. The fourth, that's the last but not the least, is to integrate system learning into our learning, our development, which means we should embed leadership into our leadership development programs. So it becomes part of our organizational DNA. And the key is just to start small, demonstrate value, and build from there. Now, let's talk about the future. The future rewards system thinkers. Why? Because the challenges ahead, you see AI, hybrid work, generational shift. It requires adaptive and human-centered systems that can learn and evolve. Organizations that can't think systematically will struggle to navigate this complexity. Therefore, HR must be the frontier of designing human-centered systems in organizations. This means designing organizations that put people at the center while understanding the systemic force that shapes our behavior. It means anticipating change, not just reacting to it. It means building organizations that thrive on complexity rather than being overwhelmed by it. And the question isn't whether our organization will face complexity. It will. So the question would rather be, are we ready to navigate it with system thinking as our compass? Still in my habit of calling to actions. What do you need to do? We map out one HR process this week and see how it's connected to every of our, both internally as HR and IT, finance, and operations, every other department in our. Ask what system is part of this. So identify those systems that is part of this function. The third is lead transformation as a strategic force. And this means that we are positioning ourselves as HR professionals to be the architects of organizational coherence and trust. Championing system thinking across our organizations, we don't wait for permission, we start small so that when we demonstrate value, we build momentum and we see the leaders backing us. right? Because the future belongs to system thinkers. Yeah. So that's all from my end. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Please feel free to ask questions. I just had to rush for us to have time to discuss. Thank you. I hope it was worth your time.
Wow. This is very timely, very insightful. It's, if I will count top 10 webinars we've done this year, this will be one of my top 5. And
Thank you.
anybody that has not listened to this still has a long way to go. Sometimes just dawns on me that each of these webinars is an answer to somebody's prayer. The question I ask myself, I hope the person that prayed is on the call or will take the pain and liberty to watch again on the YouTube channel. Very, very timely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like to ask a question or you like to share an experience along this subject matter, now is the time. We have some minutes, and our facilitator so graciously, magnanimously shared with us. So I'd like to see our hands up quickly so that we can take our questions, comments, contributions. Of course, I see a lot of people already appreciating you, clapping for you, and this is well deserved, well prepared slides, well articulated thoughts and comments. System thinking. Just checking again. And I'm also very happy for us to call it a wrap if there are no comments, questions, or contributions. So I think we'll just unmute and thank profusely, most kindly, our facilitator. If I'm not mistaken, this will be like a photo. Oh, I see Comfort. Comfort, you have the floor, my sister.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, Mrs. Somtochukwu. So, for my level of experience, this is quite highly strategic, and I would say if someone were to, is it possible to get in touch with you? How does one get this kind of information? Basically I'm asking, how do you have opportunities to mentor people on this kind of information? Because honestly, I did not understand up to 50%. It was, it's like, how do I put it? It's not like it was too much per se, but it was insightful. But it was, I'd say I don't really understand what it's about, but I'm interested. So if someone were to, want to learn and go into this area of knowledge, how should one go about this, please?
So I agree with you that this is high level, and I can confirm with you that this is what makes HR, this particular topic is what makes HR a strategic business partner. And before you get to this level, you need to understand the rudimentary stage, but basic stage of HR. You need to understand talent acquisition, learning and development. When you understand it individually, you now start thinking, how does this impact on this? How does this impact on this role? How does this impact on this department? So I agree with you that it's high level, but yes, I am open to mentoring. Yes, it's high level and technical. Yes, it is. It goes beyond just we staying in our HR, in our department to just perform hire, fire. It goes beyond we designing, learning and development. It goes beyond, it moves into we understanding how the business works. And whenever we are proffering solutions using HR initiatives, we are tying it to the business. We are aligning it with the business. Hello, Comfort.
Thank you so much. So, Ujunwa, I'll suggest that you drop your phone number in the chat box and your email, all right, so that Ujunwa can reach out. Edward Davis, you have the floor, please. Again, just before Edward speaks, just so we know. So, in entry level to director level. And we must do webinars that speaks to the needs of this wide array of people. The good thing is this thing is recorded, is on the YouTube channel. Sometimes when you listen to something like 5 times, the way you will get it the 5th time will not be the same as the first time. And then over time too, maybe in a year or 2, you may remember, you may need something and then you come and watch it again. So knowledge is progressive. Edward Davis, please.
Thank you very much, Doc. And thank you, Ma, for the presentation. This is really helpful. So when you were presenting, my mind just went to many things. And some of them are in developing systems like this. Is it or will it be safe to have it sync with softwares that will make, again, our work very easier? And then in establishing systems, what will be your advice so that if we can set a parameter for review, say maybe 6 months, we come back to the drawing board, what's working well, where we need to improve. So will 6 months be okay, or maybe less than that? So those are my 2 areas I just want your thoughts on, whether the systems, and then if we have softwares, how do we sync the two so that we can have our systems? Now we are talking about making our role very strategic. We are leaving behind the traditional way of doing things. We want to come to the room and make our presence felt. So in running systems, how do we merge the use of software in making our work stands out so that we can be at that center, so that the business revolves around us, and then we make the work of other departments much more better, and the organization as a whole, and then the time frame for review for systems that we set up. Over, and thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your question, but let me break it down in a layman's language, because most of the times when we speak all those English, you would think it's something technical. You see, systems, thinking systems might just be all about sitting down to analyze the report that those softwares that you're using has given. The softwares deals with removing biases, especially for performance management. And then it deals with administrative role. But at the end, let's have a report from the system that you remember when I mentioned data ecosystem management. We use those information we have from HRIS system that informs us about the level of attendance, the level of performance, all those systems. Let's pull out the report and sit face to face with business leaders to discuss this. Now, you have seen the results from the software. It has provided software. To be a strategic HR person, you have to go beyond using software. You should tell your software what reports you need it to provide for you that aligns with the business, so you can sit down with those reports, sit and discuss with business leaders your findings on the systems, on the software you have in place, what it's saying. Like I said, it's not something you do quick fix. It's a continuous effort. And the likes of Pulse Check, employee engagement will keep revealing the impact and the improvements you're making over time. If you keep it consistently, there is always room for improvement. You keep getting better. You keep getting better. And so to answer your question, yes, software can manage the administrative aspect if only we will condition the software to give us the information that we need that aligns with business. You cannot be asking for absenteeism or absenteeism reports or lateness, when you know all your colleagues, most of, like me, all of them are in field, are in site. What I need is feedback from the site, from the site coordinators. So it's we audition your software to give you the feedback you need to discuss business. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will do a little wrap up now. I'll just use a few examples.
Okay.
If this will help one or two people, I think it will be worth it.
Thank you.
You know, because this
for helping
session
out.
is very important and very strategic. And so sometimes I try to draw analogy from another domain to bring insights into a domain. And I'll try to go to a domain I think we have some basic understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the first example I would like to use is the digestive system. I'm going biology now. So what does the digestive system do? It takes food, breaks it down, extracts nutrients, and expels what? Waste. It's a whole value chain. So for example, in the organization, all right, we have resources, talent, information, finances, okay? And we have to digest it so that we can create outputs like products, services, and innovation. A breakdown along any of the value chain in the digestive system will cause maybe constipation. So if you eat food and you're not able to take it out as waste, it's going to be a problem. And that's what system thinking is saying, that while every element of the organization, of the department, of the unit, or of a process is important, you will not look at any constituents in isolation. So you are looking at the constituents, you are not looking at it in synchronization, in alignment to every other person. So still talking about this, using this digestive system example. So recruitment and onboarding are like ingestion. In other words, you bring something in. If you bring in poor quality hire, it will affect the whole system. Training and performance management are like digestion. You know, when you are training and you are trying to break down complex skills into usable competencies. Okay. Performance feedback and exit management are like what? Waste elimination. In other words, you are removing, in quotes, employees that are not fit for purpose. Because if you don't remove it, it will cause constipation in the organization. So when we talk about system thinking, HR must ensure, for example, that the entire employee life cycle, one, two, the entire organizational life cycle. So you integrate the employee life cycle and the organizational life cycle. So thank God, this is about the time of the year, many organizations have already started preparing the budget for next year. We have started preparing the 2026 strategy. So HR, for example, you cannot just say as HR manager or director, you just come up with an HR plan for 2026. If you don't know the operations plan, if you don't know the sales plan, you don't know the admin plan. In other words, if you are not careful, you will see that the HR plan should come last. Why? You are now aware of what? System thinking, system planning, system execution. So when some of these other departments are doing their own departmental, retreats or brainstorming session, whether they invite you or not, you go and meet them, please, I would like to join. Why? System thinking. So you understand the vision, the mission, the goals, strategic objectives, and you never take anything in isolation again. So when anybody asks you a question, oh, what do you think about us doubling the bonus this year? Like Ujunwa rightly said, you just don't say, oh, of course, beautiful idea. Why? You just thought about how will this inspire the employees? They will be happy. Okay, system thinking. How will it affect the shareholders whose dividends may reduce? Are we together? So anytime, it's like you have 4 children. One of the children says, oh, daddy, I want to go for vacation in France. What will an average father or mother do? Systems thinking. If they cannot send all the 4 children to France, what do you think will happen? They will say, don't worry. Let's go and greet Auntie Ujunwa. She's going to treat us very well. Why? System thinking. You take care of the entire system. And what system thinking does is it enables for sustainability. Okay. I hope the extra Jara, because what she has done is 100%. I just gave 5% to make it 105%. I hope everybody that had this like biology, because if you don't, maybe I just probably complicated the matter for you. All the same, this has been extremely helpful. I listened, sometimes I multitask because I do webinars almost every day or every other day. But today I could not. The only thing I was doing was listening, watching this. And thankfully for me, I joined all webinars from the laptop so that I can fully immerse myself into it. This has been extremely helpful. If you are here tonight, do me a favor, watch this session again. Share the recorded version with your colleagues. You will find it helpful. Ladies and gentlemen, I see your feedback come for tomorrow. That's also very helpful. Gratitude is part of the system, Ladies and gentlemen, let's just unmute and show Ujunwa a lot of love. Not some love. Let's show her love, Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you,
Ujunwa.
thank you so much,
Beautiful
Ujunwa.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you
Wonderful.
so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. We really appreciate.